Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we officially kick off the MLB offseason by bringing you our offseason predictions for what is going to happen with the Orioles over the next few months. We are now past the World Series. Free agency will begin this week. So we have a lot to look forward to. We want to start off, though, by addressing one of the bigger stories out of Birdland this week, which was the introduction of Craig Albernaz as the Orioles' new manager to the media on Tuesday morning during a press conference. And my general takeaway watching it, none of us had the opportunity to be there, but from watching the press conference, Albernaz seems like a very positive, energetic voice that is coming into this organization at a time where it needs a little bit of a jolt. So all the rave reviews that we heard nationally seem to be backed up a little bit by that press conference, which laid out what role he's going to play as manager, where he can particularly help this organization in terms of helping the young core that is at the major league level get better, which we know is absolutely crucial for the Orioles to improve upon a disappointing 2025 season. So, Nick, I'll start with you here. What were your thoughts on Albernaz's introduction to the media on Tuesday?
I thought it was pretty fantastic, honestly. Of course, we're in the honeymoon phase, so we all want to be optimistic about the offseason and the new manager and all that. But like I said before, I'd never heard of the guy's name until I saw the Jeff Passan tweet that said he's going to be the guy. And so you read a lot of fun articles and see great stories and see great quotes about who he is as a coach and as a person. But I think watching that introductory press conference, you saw little bits and pieces of all those stories and quotes in there. You saw hints of it at least. Trying to make Michael Elias laugh a lot, it seemed like, which is like an impossible task. But yeah, he just seemed like authentic, genuine. They're in it, not the old stuffy baseball manager type stuff. It just seemed like, I like a lot of his quotes, like give me all the data, right? But you get the vibe that yes, that kind of matches the he stays up all night figuring out how to get one guy better at one thing story. But it's like, yes, give me all the data, but you also get the vibe that there's going to be, yes, a lot of analytically driven decision making, but at the same time, if he is as genuine as the stories say about forming relationships and all that stuff and being a good reader of the room in the clubhouse that day, I think you're going to see a lot of the quote unquote old school ways as well as he tries to settle in. So I think it's going to be a good mix there. That good mix of hard ass but shoulder to lean on for these guys, especially the younger guys. So yeah, just really authentic. The family aspect as well, that was amazing. His daughter already clearly establishing dominance. But, having a 3-year-old daughter, we know how that goes. I'm sure it's the same in the Phelan household as well. We all don't know who runs the house. But yeah, just it was good vibes. Good way to kick off the offseason, I think.
Incredible vibes. And not even just from Craig Albernaz, but I thought Elias and Rubenstein's quotes were pretty interesting as well. It just seemed like Daniel Sanchez on Twitter said the same thing, but I agree. It's like as clear as ever. I think David Rubenstein made it clear, like money is not an issue. Like we have money to spend. If players will take it, we'll spend it, basically, is what it seemed to be. And Michael Elias, I liked a lot of what he had to say, like bring in different voices and evolving, no matter, we've talked about it, no matter where you think you are as far as how smart you are. I think you just need to evolve, bring in new voices and collab. And I like how he said, we're realizing that the relationship between manager and general manager is more important than ever. And I think that kind of says some things about maybe what happened this past season a little bit and the season before that. But yeah, Albernaz was just on fire, posting up Earl Weaver. Just loved I think we're going to have to get used to hearing Gunnar Henderson with that Boston accent. But honestly, more than obviously the quotes are great. He knows what to say and you get the vibes. You can understand why players like him, people like him. Personality. We'll finally have a manager with personality that can have some fun quotes before and after games. And Cleveland manager, one of his best friends, Stephen Vogt, in the building. Cleveland general manager Antonelli in the building. Like that says a lot that they wanted to be there for his press conference to go to another team, and they had nothing but the most glowing things to say. And I think another great quote was when David Rubenstein said, everyone kept telling us, you want Albernaz, but you won't get him. You won't get him, but that's the guy you want. And we got him. So, yeah, just seems like he had his pick of the litter. It seemed like he could have a manager job whenever he wanted, and he could just basically handpick which one he wanted. And seemed like it worked out where he's coming to Baltimore to coach this young core, hopefully get back on track in 2026. So, yeah, I was excited. Great way to turn the page on 2025, I thought.
Yeah, you got the sense of everything we had heard about Albernaz coming into this press conference, which is the energy he brings, the respect he has around the game, which, as you mentioned, having some people from Cleveland in the room while he was being introduced really underscores that whole point. One thing I kept thinking as I watched the press conference was that the last two full-time managers the Orioles have had, Buck Showalter and Brandon Hyde, the way that they handled the media was pretty much the same. And I know that and I never thought it was fair to Brandon Hyde that he couldn't get out of Buck Showalter's shadow in some corners of the fan base. But I used to joke around with Showalter that you could skip the Orioles game, not check the score at any point, tune into Masson's post-game show just as Buck Showalter's press conference was starting, watch the press conference all the way to the end and not know if the Orioles won or lost the game. Brandon Hyde had the exact same trait. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing all the time, but it's going to be different now with Albernaz. And I think that what I kind of came away with is that you're going to have a little bit more energy, but it's not going to be one of those managers that gets too high or too low because, let's face it, those guys tend to not last very long as managers. But it's going to be much different than what we've seen here in the last few years.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I think Brandon Hyde, just a grumpy look on his face. I know he's a personable guy, like off the camera, but just had the monotone voice with the grumpy look on his face. Yeah, it was not exactly a thrilling pre and post game show with those interviews, but yeah, I thought if this is what we have to look forward to, I mean, just a great day, honestly, all around yesterday. Just fantastic day from top to bottom between the press conference. We had a trade, an amazing trade. We had signings. We had waiver claim. We had everything. I feel like I'm forgetting some too, but great day yesterday.
Yeah, I do like that. It seemed while in the clubhouse, we talk about based on the stories and quotes, you get the sense that he's going to be a hard ass when he needs to be with these kids and all the players, but he's also gonna, like he said in that press conference, like, you lie to these guys, you're done. And so he's like, we're going to have hard conversations with players and they may not like you for a day or two, but like, they want to be coached. They're going to get over it. And if there's that trust there, that relationship, that bond is there, then like, they're going to take that to heart. Even if they may not like it, may not want to talk to them for 24 hours afterwards. But it's, yeah, I do just like we're not getting like Mike McDaniel vibes over here, but it is going to be looser, I feel like, which is, yeah, that's what we would like. Give us more personality out there. I hope he doesn't get over here and is like, I hope PR doesn't like button him up and train him to death. Like, let him be him, please. And, I feel like it's, on hard days when you watch a game and things don't go very well and it's a bad night, he's going to come up there and be straight with the fans, I feel like, as well. And say, look, tonight sucked. This is what went wrong. But he's going to have an immediate plan, I feel like, to fix it. And we'll see what happens. It's first year manager, though. We got nothing to go off of. It's all good now, but we'll see when the season starts.
I like what he said about leadership too. I thought that was really good. How it's like the players decide the leadership style. Like, there's many ways to do it. Yeah, I'm here to help, but these guys are going to have to step up in their own way, and I'll help facilitate that. Which I thought that was a pretty good answer for all the leadership concerns that happened in 2025.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that that's something that applies whether or not the Orioles add the kind of prototypical veteran leader that everybody has in their head for this offseason. And that's a good way to transition to our offseason predictions. Now, if you listen to this show, we like to make our predictions, but we always like to go back and look at our last round of predictions to see what we got right and what we got wrong. And I think that we can officially close out discussion of the 2025 season right now. Because if you were in the business of predicting anything the Orioles were going to do in 2025, chances are you were way off base. And I'll just say that all three of us had the Orioles winning at least 90 games and making the playoffs. That sets a tone for a lot of other predictions that didn't turn out to be correct. But I did go back and listen to that show, which we did with Connor Newcomb, the host of Locked On Orioles, and pulled out the predictions the three of us made. And just wanted to run through some interesting things here. One of the topics of that episode was, when will Samuel Basallo debut? Bob predicted that it would happen in June. Nick and I both said September. Will Kyle Bradish return in 2025? All three of us said yes. Most pleasant surprise of the 2025 season, Nick predicted Tomoyuki Sagano. I had Gregory Soto. Bob had Cade Povitz. Most disappointing player, Nick won this one, Grayson Rodriguez. I had Cedric Mullins, which I think came pretty close. Bob went with Ryan O'Hearn. Rookie that will have the biggest impact outside of Tomoyuki Sagano. Bob asked this question. He made sure to put in that clarifying point. Nick and I picked the same guy. That was Brandon Young. Bob went with Kobe Mayo. And honestly, Mayo had a pretty big impact in September. But who really won this one? Was it Dylan Beavers? Was it Jeremiah Jackson? Who won this?
That's really tough because, I mean, honestly, Brandon Young almost threw a perfect game. Kobe Mayo had a great September. Like you said, Jeremiah Jackson had a great flash in the pan. Dylan Beavers, great start. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to really do the 3-2-1 voting on this one to figure it out.
So Orioles MVP, it should not come as a surprise. None of us had Trevor Rogers. Nick and I both predicted, or Bob and I, both predicted Gunnar Henderson. Nick had Adley Rutzman. And then for the World Series, Bob and I both predicted the Dodgers would win. We had the opponent wrong, however. Bob had the Orioles. I had the Kansas City Royals. Nick had the Orioles and the Phillies in the World Series, but didn't specify a winner, and I somehow didn't catch that in the moment. So those are some of the highlights from the predictions. I will say, though, we didn't dump on Trevor Rogers at the time when it was popular to dump on Trevor Rogers, because there was a question in there about, when is Trevor Rogers, will he pitch for the Orioles at all in 2025? I said he would make an impact. I just got the role wrong. I said bullpen in the second half. But none of us dumped on him, as was trendy to do at the time.
Twitter will let you know we tend not to dump on players.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Forgot about that. So let's go in now to our first prediction of the night. And I'm pretty sure that we're all going to say the same thing here, but everyone loves to speculate about it. Is Adley Rutzman going to be traded this offseason? Bob, I'm going to start with you.
No chance. Well, I guess I shouldn't say no chance, but I really don't think so. I think Mike Elias's comments after the season, which was like, Adley's our guy, he's not going anywhere. I have another prediction coming up later on in the show that will further this point for me. But no, I don't think Adley's going anywhere. Worst case, I think he is going to just be a guy that is here until his contract runs out, or maybe is traded July 2027 if there's a lockout, or that doesn't make sense. But if there's another 2025 season, God forbid, where there are disappointments and he's soon to be a free agent, then maybe you do that. But no, I think worst case, he plays out his contract. And best case, he rebounds and maybe they stick together a little bit longer than the team control.
Yeah, no. He's got 2 more years of control. You're selling low on him if you trade him this offseason as well. So, yeah, unless the team just gets stupid with an offer, sure. That's true for anybody. But it makes zero sense, I think, to trade him this offseason. Ask this question next November 5th. Today's the 5th, 6th, whatever day today is. Ask this question a year from now. I think the discussion will be completely different. It could require its own episode at that point, honestly. But this offseason, yeah, no.
No, he's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, a lot of optimism in the chat, I see. So we'll go to what members of the coaching staff are going to be retained. We got a couple guys, all 3 hitting coaches, no longer here. Anthony Sanders gone as well. But who do you guys see staying?
I'll start. I'll say I think most, if not all, of the pitching guys will be back. I think Drew French, I know he was in the second year of a 2-year deal. I could see him coming back. I think Mitch Plossmeyer will certainly be back. Klimek probably as well. Other than that, I think just Buck Britton would be my only guess, unless he wants to take another opportunity somewhere, get a bench coach role somewhere. I don't think he's going to be the bench coach for the Orioles, but I see him sticking around. I think they've kind of been grooming him to be a long-term coach for this franchise for a while, and I see no reason why him and Albernaz won't get along. So yeah, I see Buck and the pitching guys coming back.
That's kind of where I'm thinking too. I think that the pitching staff is back and Britton will be back. I think the one thing you bring Britton back for is that you have some continuity, but it seems like him and Albernaz are guys that kind of operate on the same wavelength. And you can put Britton really in any role. You could put him in the original role he had before Brandon Hyde was fired, which I think was either fundamentals coach or field coordinator or something along those lines, or put him back as a third base coach. There's really any number of ways you could go, but I would agree with that prediction.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who else is also here. So right now we still have Drew French, Mitch Plasmeyer, Buck Britton, Ryan Klimek, Grant Anders, and John Mabry. I don't know. I'll say at this point, I think everybody who's still here is going to stay. I think there were some of the pitching coaches were at the press conference apparently, so I think that kind of signals that I think they're going to be sticking around. Anybody else at this point? I know Elias had mentioned there's still conversations and things happening behind the scenes, and that he wasn't at a place right now to talk about additional coaching changes. But I think that's like the hirings and who Albernaz is going to bring in. So I think we're good. And as we talked about, like pitching, I don't see any reason to move on from Drew French, or like maybe Plasmeyer gets a bigger role with another team. That would be my guess if I had to pick one. But yeah, I think we're where we're at now is where we're going as far as the guys who are still here.
John Mabry, that's an interesting one, because I know he's buddies with Skip Schumacher, was always a part of his groups, his coaching staff. So maybe he jumps over to Texas with him, or it seemed like everyone enjoyed his presence when he came on board midway through the season or early on in the season. So could see that going either way. That's an interesting one. But another open position is the GM role for the Baltimore Orioles, with Mike Elias getting the bump up and no one knowing about it. So do we think that the team will hire a GM before spring training 2026? Nick?
No, it's going to be next offseason.
I'm going to say no, too. I think that we're going to hear about various moves within the front office over the course of the offseason, but I don't think we're going to hear a GM is hired. In fact, I would not be shocked if we get to the trade deadline next year and we still don't really know if there is actually a GM in the front office.
Yeah, there's probably been one this whole time. We just don't know. I actually think they will. I mean, I obviously don't know who it is, but with a lot of shuffling going around, I could see them bringing in, and Elias has talked about the reason for waiting is that everyone's still in place that was already here. So it's a title that gives them the opportunity to bring in another voice if they find the right fit. I mean, there's so many smart baseball people out there. I can't imagine they won't find one eventually, but I'm just going to say yes because I want them to. I don't know, bring in another smart person to throw their hat into the ring of opinions. I think it would be cool.
We'll go to the next question now. Is there going to be an extension this offseason? Nick, start with you.
So I didn't know this was going to be a question when I had already made my bold prediction answer. So I'm just going to have to be broad with this one for right now because I don't want to spoil the bold one at the end. And I'm just going to say yes. And nice. I can't even put a number on that because I don't want to spoil that either.
Yeah. Speaking of Adley Rutschman, I think that there will be an Adley Rutschman extension. It's not going to be this 7-8 year deal. I think it could be a 4-year. I put around $65 million. He's getting like around 6-7. I did it by accident. $1 million in 2026, probably around 10 in 2027. And then I said 2 years at $25 million each to extend his time here. Would take him into like his year 31 season, going into that off season when the contract would be over. And I feel like he could still get paid, but stick around a couple more years at a pretty good price for both sides. And just seems like we've always wanted this extension to happen, why give up now? Michael Elias still seems like he's a fan. I think it would be a cool bounce back. But other than that, I'd love to see it. I could see Kobe Mayo, Colton Cowser. I don't want to put any spoilers for Nick's mystery extension later on, but I'm all for all the extensions they want to do.
I've got one in mind, and it's Trevor Rogers. I just think that this is the perfect time for a player and team to make an extension. Rogers coming off a good year, heading into his last year of arbitration eligibility before he reaches free agency. MLB Trade Rumors projects him to earn $6 million in in arbitration this offseason. And I think that that's a good number because there's a couple of things that could work for either side here. Rogers could seemingly get more money next year if he agrees to an extension. The Orioles, on the other hand, could pay Rogers the full projection for 2026, which would be a bargain, and then say, okay, we're going to pay you $6 million for 2026, but we're going to give you X number over the next 2 or 3 years. What I'm kind of envisioning is either a 3-year contract that covers 26, so his last year of arbitration eligibility, and then his first 2 years of free agency that would keep him in Baltimore through 2028, or a 4-year deal that keeps him with the Orioles through 2029. The thing, too, is that Rogers, given his track record, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be in line for a big contract next offseason anyways. So get that guaranteed money now. If you sign a 3 or 4 year deal, he'll be 28 next week, by the way. So if he signs a 3 or 4 year deal, there would still be time left for him to back that up with a good multi-year contract somewhere else or in Baltimore if he pitches well here. So it just feels like everything is right for an extension to happen. And that's why I'm going to go with Rogers.
That's a good one. I'd love to see that as well.
All right, let's talk about free agency now. Free agency and trades, everybody's favorites. Are the Orioles going to sign a free agent to a guaranteed multi-year deal this offseason? The thing we still have yet to see, right? Since Tyler O'Neill had the option after year one. So we still yet to see this in the Michael Elias era. Are we going to see one, at least one, this offseason? Let's start with Zach.
Yes, we will see at least one for a reliever because let's remember last offseason, the Orioles got very close to one with Jeff Hoffman. That, of course, fell apart because of Hoffman's physical. But that showed a willingness that the Orioles were going to go for a multi-year deal. And it brings me back to this offseason, which is that in order to get a closer in free agency this offseason, they're going to have to go at least 2 years. Just looking at the market that is out there, I think even with Devin Williams having the down year that he had, I saw that Fangraphs projects him for a guaranteed 2-year contract. So you're probably going to have to go at least 2 years to get a qualified closer in the door to replace Felix Bautista. I like some of the moves they've made for the bullpen so far, and they've certainly improved the depth, even though we're really not fully into the offseason yet. But they need a closer, and they're going to have to go multiple years to get one. And I still would not rule out anything beyond that, but if I have to look at the one place of the roster where it has to happen, and I think it will happen, is in the bullpen.
Yeah, I think there'll be 2, at least 2, I think is my answer. I don't want to go into specifics because I think that's a question coming up a little bit later. But yeah, I think certainly 2. Like you said, if you want a closer, that's going to be 1. If you want one of the mid to frontline starters, that's going to be another one. And if you want to make a splash for a bat, that's a potential for maybe a 3rd, which I'm leaning against. But I say at least 2.
Yeah, I'm going 2. A closer and a starter. And it's going to be the same answer for this one as later on, too. It's just, I'm going to make it easy and just go Suarez and Suarez for my picks. Like,
nice.
Ever since we did that mailbag episode and somebody had asked, like, what do you think is the most difficult roster problem to solve or the most intriguing? And I went most intriguing. I think it is going to be closer. I'm anxious to see how they fill that role. And I don't know. I threw the name Robert Suarez out at that point. I think ever since then, I'm more and more on board with Suarez. And the starters, although the starter stuff, I will say just as a whole, as far as free agency and starting pitchers, seeing Jack Flaherty and Shane Bieber return to Detroit and Toronto respectively, I think that that kind of sucks for the market, I think.
But Shoto Amanaga, I didn't expect him to be a free agent, and not like he's like some ace, but another option.
True. I forgot all about that. Yeah, I'm still going to. I still think I like Ranger. If I'm being like my most realistic option, who do I truly really want? I think I'm kind of on the Ranger Suarez above. If you're talking about some of the bigger arms, I know some concern with all the guys. Concern about Suarez. I think this year was the lowest velo in his career, but he also had the best career statistically this year. So risk with whoever you sign, obviously, but I think one of the more consistent starters in baseball the last couple of years. So, yeah.
Next up on the docket is, will there be any players non-tendered by the Orioles? And if so, who will they be? Zach?
I've got 4 getting non-tendered.
Nice.
I'll start with Alex Jackson, projected to earn $1.8 million this offseason per MLB trade rumors. I think that there is a good case to be made to bring Alex Jackson back this offseason in some capacity, but that's a lot of money for a guy that would basically be a third catcher. So I have him one. Right-handed pitcher Jose Castillo, projected to earn $1.7 million. He will be non-tendered. Dylan Carlson, projected to earn $1.5 million. Carlson was good depth, and in an ideal scenario, he would have been a guy that you brought up from AAA once or twice last year, and that would have been it. But when he was in the major leagues and he got his fair share of playing time, just kind of underwhelmed. They need to get an outfielder this offseason. Dylan Beavers looked good enough down the stretch that I think you can safely move on from Carlson. Maybe that's a guy, again, much like with Jackson, you explore bringing back later in the offseason if you can. But at $1.5 million, I don't see him being tendered a contract. And then I'll go with Ryan Mountcastle as the 4th. We talked about this a lot a few weeks ago, and I'm not going to rehash all of that, but given his track record over the last 3 years, missing time with injuries, not being particularly productive when he has been healthy, Kobe Mayo's strong September, and the fact that if you're going to add a veteran bat this offseason, it's probably first base is probably one of your best places to do it. I just think makes Mountcastle obsolete. I'm hoping that for his sake, he can catch on somewhere this offseason and have a nice bounce back year before he goes into free agency. But I feel pretty confident saying that it's not going to be in Baltimore.
I think I have 4 as well, a little different. Mountcastle, same idea. I don't want to keep piling on there and keep picking at that low hanging fruit. But I tried again. Like, you can't even hang your hat on like the leadership aspect, even. Like, I feel there's just nothing. So yeah, I think that's one. I honestly, I had no idea who Jose Castillo is. So he can go for almost $2 million. Look, I can rattle off some random ass names in the DSL and tell you exit velos, pitch velos, all of it. But I don't know who Jose Castillo is. He pitched for the Orioles last year, apparently. It's $2 million. Yeah, he's DFA'd. Albert Suarez, is he going to pitch next year? I don't know. Like, maybe you non-tender him, keep it. If you really want to keep him around, you bring him back on a minor league deal or whatever. Recruit little
Good
brother.
luck getting Robert Suarez if you non-tender him.
Maybe we'll say, hey, we're still taking care of you. But so what? Yeah, I think that's one. I agree with Carlson. If I don't know, some rumors that Orioles got his replacement today, apparently with Leody Tavares. Those rumors swirling around. The hot stove is boiling hot right now. I don't see a reason why he really struggled when he was in the big leagues. And I think those are my 4 that I feel confident. Alex Jackson, I'm fine with. I do agree that is a lot of money for a third catcher, but I don't know. I'll say he's fine. The 2 that I'm interested by is Yinir Cano. I think could be an interesting case. He's only $1.8 million. But he did struggle. They sent him down to AAA. He was, if you go back, it was the inflection point player episode, I think, a couple weeks ago. We brought him up specifically and talked about him in more detail. And there are signs, of course, we all see those signs about why he could. Maybe he's on his way out. but also some small signs of where he could potentially bounce back a little bit, especially if you keep him on those high leverage roles. So I think Cano could be interesting though. And then the only other one I'm thinking about is maybe not non-tender, but like Felix Bautista. Like what do they do? Do you just pay him? Do you got to get? I know they already gave him that like extension thing. They got whatever they did with the Tommy John surgery to kind of help him out a little bit there. Do they have to get weird with a contract situation there? Do they just pay him? What happens there with Felix Bautista? That's the question mark that I have.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a non-zero chance that Felix Bautista is non-tendered, just because and they'll know better than us, obviously, but if his shoulder is just destroyed, like if it's just really bad, I don't see why you would tender him other than just, give him that money and ability to rehab with the team doctors, which, yeah, that would be great. But we'll see. Cano, I think because he has an option remaining next year, I think he'll be back for that low salary. Garrett in the chat said Keegan Aiken. I think he'll be back. I think he's super solid middle to long inning guy when you need low leverage, please, for the love of God, low leverage. Or maybe he's a guy you want to trade, maybe can just kind of like sweeten a deal up for a team that's looking for someone in that role. But yeah, I think Mountcastle for sure is gone. That's way too much money for a below average first baseman offensively. And yeah, Jose Castillo, I do know who he is, but yeah, I do also want to non-tender him. Alex Jackson, I really liked what he showed with the bat and the glove in his short time. I think he was like one of the best F4 players on the team once he came over. I think that's a nice third catcher option, but with Basayo and Adley on the roster, even if it's just you tender him, you bring him into spring training, and if there's no room after that. Same with Dylan Carlson. I think they'll tender him. I don't think he'll make it to the opening day roster, but could be like this new meta, this new trend where it's like, we're going to tender him. We're going to give him a little bit of extra money above the minimum so that when we DFA him, the teams won't claim him and we can stash him in AAA. I think we saw it with Emmanuel Rivera this past year, seeing it with Dietrich Enns and Rico Garcia this year. Or already this offseason. Other than that, I think everyone will be back. And by the way, it's really nice. That's the thing I probably forgot about what a great day yesterday was. Jorge Mateo, he gone. Hallelujah.
Don't close the book all the way, but it's a good sign.
What holes will the Orioles fill via trade this offseason? I'll start with Nick on this one.
Bullpen. Andrew Kitteredge could be an option. We recorded this on Monday. I think they trade for a starter. I think they sign one and trade for one. I'm going to be optimistic there. A lot of arms on teams looking to shed payroll. That's where I'm gravitating to initially here. Like guys with big contracts. When you look at the front office history and understanding how they plan on constructing a roster and how that plan isn't going to undergo a major facelift, but you look at the types of trades that they made at the deadline, throwing that extra money in just to get better quality prospects at last year's trade deadline. I think it's those types of moves. So guys like, Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, Luis Severino. I'm not saying like I want all those guys specifically, but those types of guys I would be looking at. Pete Fairbanks, if you're talking about a reliever, instead of signing one, maybe trading for a Pete Fairbanks. I think he's due with like 10 or $11 million or something next year. So yeah, one of those types of arms. Again, the prospect capital you have to trade is much lower, and you just eat the contract, and there you go, do the money. I think they trade for the bat. And my bet, I think I want to really be on the Brenton Doyle train. Rockingham County Baseball League legend, Brenton Doyle, by the way. Make sure you put the proper respect on his name. D2 legend. He's from Virginia, played at college ball at West Virginia, so like he's familiar with the area. He's got family here. Last year just sucked all around for Doyle. Yet him and his wife and that tragedy that they experienced playing for Colorado, and that was like they were on pace for a historically bad year in Colorado. I think it's a lot. So, come home, come to Virginia, fresh start all the way around. He seems, in watching some Rockies games, I think his wife would sit in the outfield every single game and they had a whole cool section out there that they did. So, maybe family being back home means a lot to Doyle. Now, I think trading him is going to cost a whole lot. He's got 4 years of control left still. And I don't think the Rockies at least appear like they're trying to become a competent franchise. I don't know if it's going to work, but it looks like they might be trying. You're not going to sell him on 2025 performance. I think you're going to sell him based on 2024 performance and all those years of control. And he might be one of, if not the best piece they have if they want to move on. But I think I'm fine with paying up for that, because you got your outfielder there's your right-handed hitting outfielder. If he bounces back a little bit towards 2024 even, you got yourself your everyday starting center fielder for the next 3-4 years.
Yeah, I like Doyle a lot. I think that was one of mine, is right-handed hitting center fielder. I think could be in the trade. Obviously talked about Byron Buxton as the dream, but I think Brenton Doyle is a great option as well, and other guys are out there as well. We got to stop down and talk about the Andrew Kitteredge trade, though, because Michael Elias outdid himself. One of my favorite trades from the trade deadline, to get a high upside, high cost international signing in Wilfred De La Cruz for Andrew Kitteredge at the deadline. And then you're just like, oh, by the way, we'll take him back for a couple bucks. And yeah, that was just chef's kiss, or Jeff's kiss. Shout out Jeff Hoffman. Great job in the World Series. My other one would be a starting pitcher. I think, I don't think it's realistic to say that they're going to sign two of the starting pitchers on the free agent market. I just think there's too many teams with that need, and it is a lot of money, especially when you're in the upper ends of it. Unless you want to do one is like the Japanese route with Amai or one of the other guys. But yeah, I think starting pitcher, center fielder, potentially reliever, but I think they'll get their closer through free agency and Kitteredge.
They'll get a starting pitcher through trade. I just think that's going to be the more realistic path to get either a top of the rotation arm, or another scenario is that they have to deal from their existing pitching depth to get another bat. They sign as top of the rotation arm, but then they have to pivot and figure out, okay, well, who's our number 4 starter next year? Let's go and see who's on the trade market. At that rate, a guy like Brady Singer comes in play. Had a nice year for the Reds last year. I think he's projected to earn $11 million in arbitration. So the Reds could be looking to offload that cost. Singer's obviously not the guy you want to build your rotation around. But again, if you have to move some arms in-house to get a bat, that could be somebody that fills out the bottom of the rotation. But for the top of the rotation, for me, Joe Ryan's still the top target, with Pablo Lopez second. And then for the bat, I kind of agree after listening to Nick here. I'm all in on Brenton Doyle. And in fact, I might prefer Doyle over Byron Buxton at this point, because what's a better chance of happening? Brenton Doyle bouncing back from a sluggish 2025, or Byron Buxton being healthy for the rest of his contract?
Yeah.
I can't decide.
We'll go to free agency now. What holes will the Orioles fill via free agency? Start with Bob.
Yeah, nothing new on this end for me, but I do think they will get a starting pitcher. I do think they're going to make a splash on that, and I think I'm kind of all in on Dylan Cease at this point. I think 4 years, 140 million, 5 years, whatever, 150 million. I think something like that. Get it done. The Steamer projections, I think he is tied with Framber Valdez for 3.6 WAR in the 2026 season, and the stuff is electric. Obviously, strikeouts are king. Michael King? No. Dylan Cease. Get him for the not top of the rotation, but below Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish, even though I think he could end up being the best of the bunch if it all comes together. He's never developed a third pitch. So maybe the Orioles can tinker around, get him throw a sinker more, finally get him to be able to throw a changeup, what have you. I'm all in on Dylan Cease starting pitcher, but it could be any of the other guys out there. And yeah, Tetsui Imai, I think he's a really good option as well. I think he's a sleeper, but something tells me he's going to the Dodgers. I also think you could get a bench bat from free agency. Rob Refsnyder is stuck out to me for about a month now, so I'll stick with that. And then I think your closer, it's either going to be Devin Williams or Ryan Helsley or Robert Suarez. Those are the big three. I think with Helsley probably distant third there, but I would love to get Devin Williams 3-4 years. I don't care. Bring him to me. I think he's going to be electric still for the next several years. And yeah, if not him, then a big arm like Suarez or Helsley would do.
I agree with Bob's picks there. I think they're going to go with a closer, and I think they're going to go for another outfielder. If there was a world where I thought Harrison Bader was going to be paid based on what he has done over the course of his career and not just what he did last season, I could see that being a fit. But I have a feeling that because of the weak center field market, both he and Trent Grisham are going to get overpaid by somebody this offseason. And I would prefer that not be the Orioles. So Rob Refsnyder, I think, is a very good target at that point. And if the Orioles really want to make a splash in free agency, yes, I don't think the depth of this free agent class is very good. That's something I've said repeatedly. But between Valdez and Cease, they've got the opportunity to get a really good arm. Or if they want to go for one of the big bats, Bellinger, Alonso, Bregman, Tucker, they're all in play. Do I think any of those guys sign with the Orioles? No, but that would be a real splash if any of them did, and it would fill some, I think especially Bellinger or Alonso could fill some obvious holes in this roster.
Okay. Didn't John Muley, was that last year? When did John Muley come on and he pitched the Alex Bregman thing?
Last year. He had a great case for it, too.
I wonder if he still feels the same. He's hopefully coming back on soon with Baseball America starting to release their top tens. Yep. So we'll see if he can come make that case for Bregman again. I just mentioned mine earlier. I like the Suarez and Suarez. I almost wonder, like, if you bring in, I know we're a lot of people all in on the Jeremiah Jackson train in 2026, but I wonder if, like, you bring in some competition there for that role. And I just said one of the Japanese players. I've got Lance Brosdowski's video. I know he did a great breakdown. I've got my articles when I have time to breathe. I don't know any of them. I don't know anything about them, but I've got all it there. I think it's going to be, I like to see one. I know you got a handful of them, and I don't know who would be the best fit, but I would like to build on the Sugano signing. Just landing a younger, bigger name this offseason to continue to grow that pipeline, because I know a lot of work has been done in that area and scouting that area. So I'd like to see that grow with one of the free agent signings there.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. If we do get the Suarez's, we have to name that episode the Suarez Soiree. Anyway, moving on. What will the 2026 payroll look like compared to 2025, Nick?
Where were they at in 2025? Do you know off the top of your head?
Off the top, Garrett in the chat probably knows, but
roughly 162 million at the start of the season. And
I think going into accounting, arbitration, all this stuff, 161 is apparently. We have like approximately $75 million to play with for 2026 money to even get back to that number, apparently. So
that's a lot. Higher, but marginally higher. I think not high enough for people to be happy, but I'll just say higher. I don't know an exact number. I don't know. Somewhere between 10, 15. I'll just say 10, 15 higher.
That's kind of where I think they end up too. They will be higher, but it's not going to be, when you look back in the offseason, like which teams increase their payroll the most. The Orioles aren't going to be on that list. So I'm going to go higher, but not significantly higher.
I agree. I mean, 161, that's pretty high compared to, if you look at the past 5 or 6 years, that's certainly the highest. And it just maybe wasn't distributed in the most effective way. But I'll say a little bit higher, similar range, but maybe 175 at the end of the day. But I do think it's going to look better because I think it's going to be on fewer players for bigger amounts. So it kind of looks like more impactful amount of the spending. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if you do like $35 million for Cease, $20 million for Devin Williams, that's $45 million. Right? I mean, yeah, that is a lot of money to play with. So could be good.
Go to this question now. Fill in the blank. The 2025-26 offseason will be remembered as, and Bob, I'll go back to you to start out this one.
Yeah, this is, I think, going to be the offseason that will be remembered as, I wrote it down here, the promise of having this new ownership group will be fulfilled, because I think they will make a big splash with the, like it does. I keep saying Dylan Cease, but one of the big pitchers, and I think, like I was saying, a more impactful salary or payroll at the end of the day, even if it is similar to last year's. And I do think that last year you did see the promise fulfilled, just from willing to eat money to get better trades and deals and spending money at the margins. But I think it's going to feel like it more this year, where it's like, okay, they signed 2-3 really impactful guys, traded for someone with, some pedigree. So I think it's going to be like, okay, David Rubenstein, thank you for the extra money compared to the Angelos era of later years.
I went with refreshing. It's like, if I feel like that's broad enough, we can go other ways. It's not over promising, but I don't know. Like, if you want to continue to complain and whine, like, go for it. Be miserable. Like, if this offseason is the same as last season, I'm going to be right there with you. But that comment. But I just can't be in that place right now on November 5th. I'm tired of being beaten down by the failures and inactions of this organization. And for my own sanity, it's fun to make bold predictions and throw out names like we've thrown out here tonight. Whether they're realistic or not, we'll see. But like, if we were to just get on this microphone tonight and say Merrill Kelly is going to be the top guy, like, you're not listening to the show. One, and we're this would not be my first and only beer of the night. This would be like my third. So I just think it's refreshing. I'm going to go into the offseason with a hesitant and not overly optimistic, but hopeful optimism. I don't think MLB or Fangraphs or whoever is going to have, when they put out the 5 winners of the offseason, Orioles may not be on that list, but I think real additions are made. And it's, a refreshing offseason.
I have remembered for the Orioles making adjustments to their approach, but not pivoting completely in their philosophy. And because I think you're going to see a lot of analysis here in the coming weeks, especially when the coaching staff is finalized about, are the Orioles changing direction? Are they changing course? And on some things they might be. But I think overall what you're going to see this offseason, regardless of whether or not they spend, is that they're sticking to what they believe works. They feel like they've gotten the manager in place to help them make that work. And it may be that they spend for 1 or 2 big contracts, but those players that they sign fit specific attributes that we know this front office has always prioritized, whether it's on the pitching or the hitting side. Or it might be that they're just smarter in how they spread their money around this offseason than they were last offseason. So there's a few different ways, shapes, and forms that could take, but I feel like what we're going to look back and realize was, it was a different offseason than what we had seen in the past, and maybe it led to different results than it did the year before, but the underlying thought process was basically the same.
I like that.
All right. I think this might be the last one, unless somebody has anything else you want to add on here at the end. But bold prediction. Now let's have real fun. Bold predictions for the Orioles and MLB as a whole. So take this where you so please to round out the show tonight. Start with Bob.
All right. Well, there were multiple comments pissed at me for trying to trade Jordan Westburg last week. So I'm going to double down on that with my bold prediction and say Jordan Westburg is traded as the headliner in a deal for a top-of-the-line starting pitcher, whether it's Tarek Skubal, whether it's Hunter Green, whether it's et cetera, and the Orioles will go back to Japan and sign Akamoto for third base to kind of fill that gap. It could be Bregman, but I kind of like Okamoto more. And then MLB wise, I put Kyle Tucker will not sign with the Dodgers because that seems like it's been foretold that he will do so. So I think he'll sign somewhere else. Hopefully not the Yankees either, but I'm sure his services will be vied for. Keith Law says he's not a superstar. Keith Law is a known idiot, and Kyle Tucker will not sign with the Dodgers.
Good guesses there. My original pick for this was the Trevor Rogers extension, so I had to completely pivot here and go with something for the Orioles that I'll admit I don't know if it's actually that bold, but given how much grumbling there is about how slow the Orioles move in the offseason, I think one of the bigger moves of the offseason will happen before Christmas. We saw last year Garrett Crochet got traded fairly early in the offseason. We saw a few big moves league-wide at the winter meetings last year, and I've said it once, I will say it before, the winter meetings is a very arbitrary stretch of dates on the offseason calendar, but I know that a lot of people follow them closely, so something could happen in that time period. I think the Orioles, maybe one of the tough lessons from last year has to be that if you're really in on these top-tier guys, you've got to move a little bit faster, whether that's in free agency or trade. So I'll say that one of the biggest moves, if not the biggest moves of the offseason, happens between now and I'll give myself a little bit of a buffer and say before the end of 2025. My bold prediction league-wide, despite a lot of forecasts that it's going to happen and a lot of predictions about where he could go, Tarek Skubal will not be traded. He will be in a Tigers uniform to start next season. Let's not forget, this team was one win away from the ALCS. They've got Jack Flaherty coming back. They've got a good young core of position players. They need to figure out how to rebound from a tough second half, but at least they won a playoff series. We saw what a difference maker Skubal can be in the playoffs. So as long as they have any designs on contending next year, they shouldn't trade him, and I don't think they will.
I think they should, and I think it should be to the Orioles for Jordan Westburg. And could you imagine, though, if we traded for Skubal, signed Cease, got Bradish, Rogers, Grayson Rodriguez is healthy, champions.
Well, not to derail this, but I was listening to someone else talk about this. It was another team-specific show, and they were talking. All right, someone asked, "Well, what would a Skubal trade package look like from their team perspective?" And their conversation was, if you look at what the Corbin Burns deal was, it was one top 100 prospect, the former top 100 prospect, and the draft pick. So, could 2 top 100 prospects get you Skubal? I don't know, maybe. It'd be fun. I don't think anyone who trades for him is going to be able to extend him, obviously. But I think to segue that into my bold prediction for the league, I said I'm going Mets here. And I said they bring back Pete Alonso, they sign Bo Bichette, and they trade for Tarek Skubal. And the Mets go wild this offseason after last season. Do I think it's smart? Absolutely not. The Mets are still going to Mets, and I'm going to enjoy watching that. But that's my bold league-wide prediction for Orioles. I feel like we talked about a couple of these already, so I don't know if they're bold, but maybe like packaging them together in one offseason as an Orioles fan is kind of bold. But I'm going to say they sign Cease, and he gets the second most amount of money in the class behind Fromber. They trade for Joe Ryan, and we see 2 extensions. And if you want specific names, I had Trevor Rogers. And then I had the complete opposite of what you were just pushing out there. I'm going to go with a Jordan Westburg extension. Throw the positive comments in the chat afterwards towards that one. Extend Westburg in the post-video chat. But yeah, I think it's going to see my bold will be trade for a big name, sign the big name, and then help out the homegrown guys with some nice extensions. Well, Rogers isn't homegrown, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to that press conference. Another David Rubenstein quote that I thought was interesting was he said that Michael Elias has already talked to him about a few options for the pitching staff. So it's like, and the reason I thought of that was because Zach said we're going to need a strike early. Well, if he's already getting specific with Rubenstein. Maybe there's already some negotiating going on.
I mean, wasn't there the whole deal? Supposedly there was already a graphic made with Cease in the Orioles uniform, like
Really?
somebody that worked for the Orioles.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't remember. There was something about that last year. I don't know if it was real or not, or the guy just did it just for practice. But yeah, I don't know.
There's been a lot of smoke around Cease and the Orioles for a few years now, so would be nice. Would be fitting.
We could have recorded an episode 2 years ago and called it "Is this the offseason that the Orioles acquired Dylan Cease?" But been as vague as possible, and it'd be evergreen podcast content. People would still be listening to it.
We should just every episode from now on. Will the Orioles do this? Question mark.
And we will find out what the Orioles are going to do here in the coming weeks. Check back in next week. As of right now, we are slated to break down the Orioles' looming decisions with their 40-man roster and which players are going to protect from the Rule 5 draft. Of course, if there's any news in Birdland between now and then that warrants it, we will perhaps explore that as well in either a separate episode or the same episode. Either way, we will be back here next Wednesday. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We are also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. Nick has been pumping out a lot of good articles, breaking down some of the moves the Orioles have made this offseason, including the reacquisition of Andrew Kitteredge. So if you've not had a chance to read those yet, head over to Substack today and check that out. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member today at the $3, $5, or $10 level. You will have access to bonus episodes as well as monthly updates to our top 50 prospects list in season. And in just a few weeks, the beginning of our top 50 prospects countdown. One episode a day for 50 days, all the way from 50 up to number 1 as we present our preseason top 50 prospects list for 2026. You're not going to want to miss that. And you will also have access to patron exclusive channels within our Discord. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Sped. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.